The Short-Term Rental Playbook, a guide to finding, analyzing, buying, and managing rental properties with risk and diversification in mind. By Andy Wen. Chapter 1. Short-Term Rentals. What is it? "She's a snake," my mother whispered, holding my hand as we left our apartment. Although a little boy, I immediately understood that we should not trust that snake lady, or any stranger for that matter. It was one of my earliest childhood memories. My parents and I rented a room in this big apartment block building. The other tenants, like us, were never there for a long time. In fact, 2 weeks would be a long stay in that apartment building. I didn't know it at the time, but this was my first experience of the short-term rental investment strategy. As a guest or short-term tenant, the short-term rental or rentals, STR or STRs, real estate investment strategy goes by many names. More names are invented every day that I probably don't know. Before we get lost in a sea of what you think it means, allow me to summarize it in one sentence, what the STR investment strategy really is. Renting a property, or part of a property, for a short term. What does short term mean exactly? Is it 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 1 decade? The truth is, it depends. It depends on what the rules and laws say when it comes to defining the period or duration of what constitutes short term. This varies according to location, as different towns, cities, and countries all have different rules and laws. For our purposes, short-term means a short-term rental agreement that spans typically 1 or a few days to maybe a few weeks. Let's say generally less than 8 weeks or approximately 2 months. Short-term, to me, is not discussed in terms of months and definitely not in terms of years regarding the duration of the rental agreement. The legal definition of short-term depends on where you're based, and there is usually less legal protection for individuals who rent on a short-term basis compared to those who rent for the long term. Ultimately, you have a property or part of a property that you rent out on a short-term basis. You either own or have the legal right to let this place to potential customers who only want to rent for a few days or weeks. Tenants, in this case, are sometimes also referred to as lodgers or guests. Note, exact terminology will vary depending on your location. It's like British versus American English. Chips may not mean the same thing in the UK or in the USA. Just so you know, chips in the UK means potato or French fries, whilst chips in the USA means crisps to the Brits. Don't ask me why. This is simply how things are. This is similar for STR terminology such as guests, lodgers, tenants, and so on. It depends on where you are and what terminology applies. I'll use these terms interchangeably, but make sure you're aware of the legal terminology for your specific location. Now that we've defined what an STR is, here are some names that this real estate investment strategy goes by. Airbnb rentals, vacation rentals, holiday rentals, serviced accommodation, house hacking. Naturally, this list is ever growing, and there are more marketing tactics to suck in potential investors to the attractiveness of the STR strategy.